Mr. President, tomorrow we will have an opportunity to vote for students. Tomorrow we will have an opportunity to vote for parents. Tomorrow, Mr. President, we will have the opportunity to vote for common sense in the United States Senate. Tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to vote for my resolution to stop the Biden Department of Education from destroying educational opportunities for millions of students and their parents. During the pandemic, we saw the devastating impact of prolonged school closures on America's kids, especially kids living in low-income communities. Big labor unions orchestrated these shutdowns, and blue city politicians fell in lockstep. They sided with union bosses over parents, over kids, and over plain old common sense. Now we see the tragic consequences. The 2022 NAEP scorecard shows the largest drop in reading scores for 9-year-olds in more than 30 years. And the first ever drop in math scores, a 7% decrease. We warned them that this would happen. We said, stop. Stop letting labor bosses make decisions. Parents are the ones who know what's best for their kids. They need flexibility. They deserve choice. One of those options should always be high-quality public charter schools. These charter schools continue to outkick their coverage. This year, charter schools only represent 12% of all public high schools, but they make up 22% of the top 100 public high schools in our amazing country. That's nearly 1 out of 4 amazing public schools are charter school, even though only 12% of all schools, all high schools, are charter schools. Think about this. In Colorado, 85% of charter school students met performance standards compared to only 66% of students in district-managed schools. Despite their proven track record of success for students, for parents, and of course, for common sense, the Biden administration continues to attack charter schools. He campaigned against them. And then as soon as he got in office, he directed the bureaucrats at the DOE, the Department of Education, to put new restrictions on charter schools, desperately looking for funding. These restrictions are a slap in the face to parents who are turning to charter schools as a better alternative for their children. Since the pandemic, charter schools have gained 7%. 7%, that's 240,000 more students have chosen charter schools because their parents are able to access common sense for their kids' education path. That means hundreds of thousands of students are better off today than they were before they had this option. These are kids growing up in some of America's most devastated communities, some of America's poorest communities, some of America's most disadvantaged communities. And this is a game changer, not just for the students while they're enrolled in these schools, but this is a game changer for the rest of their lives. This is a game changer for them economically. This is the fastest path to to the American dream. What we all hope to achieve one day. This is the game changer that we so often talk about. We've seen the success of providing parents with more options right here in Washington, D.C., since the creation of the bipartisan, and let me say that word one more time, because sometimes here in Washington, we don't think anything happens in a bipartisan fashion. But the D.C. Opportunity Scholarship is a bipartisan coalition of senators, Congress members who came together to make sure that D.C. kids since 2004 have had opportunity for quality education through charter schools. Yes, 11,000 students, by the way. Not 500, not 2,000. 11,000 students from low-income families here in D.C. were able to receive scholarships to attend the school of their choice, scholarships that were provided by Republicans and Democrats in the Congresses since 2004. Good news, by the way. Good news is that these students attending these remarkable public charter schools graduate 91% of the time. 91% of the time. Compare that to students in the D.C. area that do not attend a public charter school, who are in the public school system. They graduate only 2 out of 3 times, 66%. Wow. I can't imagine a world where my friends across the aisle who stood with me to protect D.C. Opportunity Scholarships would not stand with us today to protect more education options for kids all across America. By voting for the administration's restrictions, my friends across the aisle are telling these hard-working parents that labor union bosses and bureaucrats know what's best for their kids, better than the parents themselves. That's plain wrong. Here's what I know. The greatest difference between the haves and the have-nots. It's not the color of your skin. It's not the neighborhood you live in. It's not the income of your parents. The biggest difference between the haves and the have-nots in our country will not be solved by playing politics and putting labor unions in front of your kids. The way that we close that gap, the biggest difference between the two sides, the haves and the have-nots, my friend from Indiana, education. Quality education. Changes lives. It sets poor kids on the right path. I want to do for the kids today what was done for me when I was a kid. I want to make sure that everybody understands that education is the closest thing to magic in America, and I do mean a good education. I yield back, Mr. President.